Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Alestral's deck profile for you. This time I'm coming at you with a straight up Water Nexus deck, often affectionately referred to as Wexus. So when Daybreak first came out, this deck, Water Nexus, was actually predicted to be one of, if not the best deck in the entire meta, which did not really end up panning out. I've played a lot of water variants, particularly Draking and Chronodile, but I wanted to try just straight up Water Nexus with mostly just, well, pure water cards, as opposed to blending with another spirit like Solar or Lunar or Thunder, although I do want to try out that Wet Thunder deck at some point as well. So I'll be honest, I didn't have high expectations when I built this deck, because my first thought was like, yeah, we're playing a bunch of pretty good water cards, but wouldn't they just be better with the already proven to be good Thunder package, or something else? And the answer to that question is almost assuredly yes. But I will say that this deck flowed, no pun intended, flowed better than I thought it would. It played a lot more smoothly than I was anticipating. And it makes me hopeful. It does make me hopeful for particularly some of the future cards coming out in Moonrise, like Starbit, especially Oistillery. I think Oistiller might actually end up being pretty big for this deck. But yeah, if you're looking to play just a straight up water deck, no Draking, no Chronodile, nothing like that, I highly recommend checking out this list. It did pretty decently for me here. So here at the top we have 2 copies of Kerberos. This is our only 2-spirit in the whole deck. You're probably familiar with it by this point, but it's a 9/2 for 2 water spirits. You can disenchant 2 water from your field in order to destroy a card, and if it is destroyed, you can return spirits from your underworld to your spirit deck up to the number of spirits it had. I will say you're not going to resolve this effect a lot. You're not going to resolve it a lot. The 9/2 stat line is a lot of the incentive to run out a Kerberos. I have also misplayed Kerberos on the channel in the past. You cannot expend from your spirit deck. You have to disenchant from your field. So, the thing I don't really like about Kerberos is that Galaxy is so good right now. That's kind of one of the biggest issues with water, and it's really frustrating because it's an issue within the water spirit type itself, is that Galaxy is being played in a lot of non-water decks, meaning that water decks actually really struggle when non-water decks are on Galaxy. And Kerberos is one of the biggest examples of that. I actually find Galaxy to be an incredibly frustrating card, like, inherently, as far as how it's designed and how it's ruled, but this is kind of one of the reasons. That said, I do think Kerberos is still a pretty solid card. Let's see, we have 3 copies of Eddie. Of course, if we're playing a water deck, we're going to be on 3 Edward. We are not playing Rock in a Hard Place, because we're not like a dedicated Draking deck. But you don't need to for Eddie to be good, of course. And I don't think you need to for Kerberos to be good either. But, I mean, Eddie is Eddie. Of course, we're just playing a playset of it. And, naturally, we are also playing a playset of Galaxy. So, as I mentioned before, you know, when 5's decks are on this and we play against them, that's really, really annoying for us sometimes. Again, especially if we have like a Kerberos or certain other dudes out. But even if we have our own Galaxy out, them playing a Galaxy will shut our Galaxy off. So even if we want the swap, we can't always guarantee that we get it. Like I said, I think Galaxy is an incredibly frustrating card, both in how it's designed and it's ruled. It really should have just swapped stats on your side and not your opponent's as well. I don't know why it's every single water enchanted Celestial. It's, yeah, I'm not a fan of it personally, but we are still, of course, going to rock a playset of it, as well as a playset of Moose Station. With the exception of Kerberos, we've seen all these cards before in, like, the 5's deck, right? And that's kind of the thesis of, like, why Water Nexus should, in theory, be good, is that all these water cards are quite good. But Moose Station we've played in a couple of decks before. You're probably familiar with it by now. Playset of Foamy, 3 of those as well. The more I play both with and against Foamy, the more I find this card actually to be very, very good. A lot of the people that I've played against, and myself, again, when I've played against this card, are very hesitant to attack a defense mode Foamy, right? Because when you have the option to grab, you know, either Eddie or Galaxy, I would assume that any deck playing Foamy is going to be able to grab one of these 2 cards. And you might think, like, oh, Foamy brings the thing out in defense mode, so, you know, Eddie's only got 1 defense. Galaxy's only going to come out with 2 defense. Is that really that good? The answer to that question is actually yes, because there are a lot of board states where your opponent only has 1 dude, right? Either that or you'll have a counter rune set with the Foamy. So even if they try to swing in with more than 1 dude, you can protect whatever you bring out. And there aren't a lot of game states, in my experience, where you as the opponent can comfortably swing into the foamy and still expect to deal with either one of these that come out, right? It can be a very... It can create some really weird board states, foamy. Again, I've had a lot of opponents who will just wait until they get a suppress or destroy effect to even deal with the foamy. So I think it is quite good in that regard. Alright, we are playing some more water dudes that are a little less typical. Drataga, we got a couple copies of that. 1/4, it's basically Catarant for water. If it receives a water spirit, you can return 2 water spirits from your underworld to the spirit deck. 1/4 means that it plays pretty decently well with Galaxy in that regard, so only 2 copies of it though, because it's not as consistent. It requires a little more setup. Same with Aphoros, which we're only playing 2 copies of. This is Water's Nexuser. It's a 2/4. You can Nexus up to 2 water, and when you do, you can draw a card for each water that a card receives this way, which is a pretty good effect, right? Like, being able to threaten to draw multiple cards per turn off of this is good, but the problem is that it not only requires a bit of setup, but like even if you have like the dream hand of this plus Poseidon, you know, you're still just sitting on a 2/4. Like, yeah, you have to draw a couple of cards, but this is not a difficult card to out as far as its body goes. If it does live multiple turns and you're able to draw multiple cards over multiple turns, a phenomenally great card. But a lot of the time, it just is too weak and requires too much setup. So that's why we're only playing 2 of it. And, of course, 3 Astrabbit. Like any Celestial deck, we value consistency, we value good stat lines, and this card does so well in both that we are, of course, going to play Thunders just to play it. Alright, that's it for the Celestials. For the runes, I'm on 2 copies of Poseidon. Only 2 of the Divine with no ways to search it, because we're really not a Divine-focused deck at all. In fact, if you even look through the Celestials, there's a lot of, you know, standalone just good Celestials here that really don't care about the Poseidon. So that's why we're only playing 2 copies of it, and again, no way to search it. There are a few interactions that care about it, like I mentioned before. Aphoros gets to draw multiple cards off of it. Drataga, you can heal a lot off of it. The other big interaction is Curubus. This is what going to be one of your easiest ways to pop cards with the Curubus. So, again, because we have multiple interactions that favor pretty well with multiple water Celestials in our deck, I think it is worth at least experimenting with Poseidon in a deck like this. But a deck like this also doesn't need Poseidon. Like, I could see a world where we... Well, here's the thing, right? Because I'm like, oh, I could see a world where we drop Poseidons, we drop Aphroses, and we drop Dratagas, and we play more tempo-based stuff. But then at that point, isn't it like... Don't we just drop Curbuses and become a 5s deck at that point? Like, that is a lot of the struggle with trying to play a dedicated Water Nexus deck, I find, is that sometimes it can be hard justifying playing straight-up Water instead of, like, 5s again, or, like, Wet Thunder or something. Earthquake, because it's Earthquake, it's a staple at this point. I think I am just putting Earthquake in every single deck. Of course, the same is true of Ambrosia, and pretty much true of Resting on Your Laurels. I think Chronodile was a recent deck I didn't play Resting in, because you expect to have a lot of spirits on board at pretty much any given point in time, and it had a lot of other ways to destroy cards, too. Alright, on to the counters. I'm actually playing quite a few. I'm playing 3 Tsunami, 3 Gorgons, 3 PTA, and I'm also playing 3 Shield on top of that. That's 12. A lot of the reason that I'm playing 12 counters is, again, for all of our water stuff that's not good standalone stuff, right? The Dratagas, the Aphroses, trying to get a Curubus set up, right? To help those plays go through, having 12 counters to help protect our stuff does end up working out pretty well, so... Alright, that's it for the main deck. For the Spirit deck, it's very, very simple. Because if you noticed, we play exactly 4 non-water, non-omni cards. And we have 3 Zaptor for the 3 Astrabbit, and 2 Earthquake for the... or 2 Earth, rather, for the Earthquake. And those are our 4 non-water, non-omni cards, meaning our other 15 spirits are all going to be water. So, alright, that is it for the list. Let's go ahead and check out this gameplay. Alright, let's get into this game against Queso, who is going to be on the Thunder deck. Once again, splashing the water engine. Wet Thunder, I've been calling it. Dewdrop, I think it's also called. D-E-U-X. Drop. Anyway, we are going to be going second here. Queso's going first, leading off with an Elchick. Going for that Zeus right off the bat there.
Yeah, so one thing I am, of course, thinking about in this matchup, as I mentioned in the profile, is the nature of how the Galaxies and Queso's deck are going to play against my Water Alestrals. But to a certain point, you kind of just got to accept that it's going to be a part of the game. It's annoying, but it's not like it's not an auto lose factor. We certainly have ways of playing around it. That's actually kind of low key another reason why I play so many counter runes. I mean, I guess the tsunamis don't really help with this, but the shields in particular are very helpful for dealing with Galaxies. Just having another tool. Galaxy is the exact kind of Celestial that we like to shield, especially in this deck, but in general too. Don't really like shielding stuff that has effects that when it enters play it does stuff. Like Astrabbit, like Jolton, like pretty much Elichick, like everything else in the deck there. So, I think Queso actually ended up going for an Astrabbit instead. Decided to play that instead of Elichick, but either way, it's all good. So we're gonna draw for turn and go for the Moustation here, giving it a Water Spirit naturally, and this does threaten the Astrabbit. Very, very nice that the card can do this. It's one of the few Alestrals that can single-handedly do that. It's going to draw the PTA here. So that's actually not horrible, because after setting 2, I can use the Moustation effect anyway. Remember that PTA drops the attack by 2, but not the defense. So after I swap, I'm still at 6 attack. And then I get to still KO. I've been playing a lot of Pokemon lately. Still get to battle over the rabbit there. Alright, here's the Elichick now coming down for the Zeus. Not going to use either of my back rows here. Yeah, I think that play was worth it. Like, I think taking out the Astrabbit there was absolutely worth expending 1 extra water. Especially because Queso still had to expend an extra for the PTA anyway, right? So, I think we came out relatively even on spirits on that. Yeah, so here's the Zeus. And no back rows. Elichick's just going to swing in. We definitely like seeing that. The no face downs. Alright, drawing for turn. I think I did glimpse shield there is what I drew. Casting out the Foamy. This is the exact kind of board state where I think Foamy is really, really good. Because Queso doesn't have any face downs, so no threat of a Gorgons, right? And yeah, I think he's going to have to play pretty defensively. I mean, Astrab would be a pretty good play here either way. But this is the exact kind of board state I was talking about. You might think that Foamy bringing out the Water Celestial in defense mode wouldn't be great, but like, Elichick does not have a great attack here. I could bring out Eddie, turn the Astrabbit to attack mode, and then on my turn, turn Eddie to attack mode and battle over it. Galaxy could also threaten to battle over Elichick itself, although I think I would definitely go for Eddie over Astrabbit in this case. And that's among other options that we have, too. We, of course, also play stuff like Tratagua and Afros, which are situationally relevant, too. But that's also why the Foamy Galaxy Eddie package is so good in Queso's deck as well. Alright, setting another card alongside these that we have here. And I'm just going to ascend the Foamy here. I'm just going to go into the Curibus. Rather than try to get value of like crashing the Foamy into something, I think I'm just going to get value in being able to battle over the Astrabbit here. And yes, I could have dealt damage by battling over Elichick, but I think that Elichick's just going to be easier to out. Okay, I knew this was going to happen. See, that's the thing. It's not just Galaxy, but it's also Eddie. Both of those cards are really, really good against Curibus. It's again, it's kind of frustrating that Water's best cards are also the best out to Water decks in general. But yeah, Galaxy I'm going to let come down here. That does swap my Curibus into a 2/9. Alright, it's looking like, yeah, this is going to be the Mount Olympus. We know Queso's got a Zeus in hand as well. But we have plenty of back rows. This is the exact reason why I like playing 12 counter runes in this deck. This is the exact kind of a board state. So, interestingly enough, attack order actually super matters here. And Queso does elect to attack with the Elichick first, which was correct, because that's going to bait out my Tsunami. But of course, Tsunami doesn't turn the Galaxy to defense mode, and I am going to use a shield on that. If Queso had attacked with Galaxy first, then I would have just shielded it, And then Elchik couldn't have battled over Kerbis because it would have been a 9-2, and I would not have had to use my Tsunami. So, very well played on Queso's part. He absolutely attacked in the 100% correct order there. Alright, so that said, my Kerbis is back up to a 9-2. I'm going to run out my Astrabbit here in attack mode, because, one, it's a 3-6. That's a very minor reason I'm putting it in attack mode, but the major reason is that, like, I know that Queso's going to want to recast the Galaxy and run over the Kerbis. If he does that, then my Astrabbit is completely fine. So I kind of don't have a reason to not play it in attack mode right now. Also, I'm pretty sure that other face down is a second shield, which would be another great reason to play it in attack mode. But even just given the current board state, it's still optimal to play the Rabbit in attack mode. Also because, of course, we can battle over the Elchik and then get in for 2 spirits with the Kerbis. I wasn't even considering that, but another face down card. Yeah, I mean, you know, we've all had these games, and we're on this side right now, but we've all had those games playing against someone who just always has, like, multiple back rows every single turn, and how much of an uphill struggle that can feel like. And, again, that's a lot of the thesis behind playing 12 counter runes in this deck. Here comes that Galaxy yet again. Cast is going to be fine. Queso's going to set. And looks like Zeus is actually going to end up coming down here. Or maybe not. He was thinking about it. Nah, it's just going to be a swing with the Galaxy. And sure enough, I do have another shield. Again, the exact reason why we play 3 shield, as mentioned in the profile. You got to protect that Kerbis. Now, once Oistillery comes out, that's a little bit less of a thing. I guess to be fair, if you summon it in defense mode and then Galaxy comes out, it becomes an 8-4 and Galaxy can still battle over it. Okay, yeah, you might just need to keep playing shields. 3 shields, that is. Or at least 2. I mean, shields, of course, just a good card anyway, but... yeah, here I'm just going to re-enchant the Astrabbit. I was considering expending a draw anyway, and this is a better draw. Also, again, remember that Queso has Mount Olympus up, meaning my Astrabbit is now a 4-7, and with each passing turn is becoming a more and more respectable attacker. Of course, also better to do this than expend a draw, because we get to deal an extra point of damage as well. So I'm going to swing with the Astrabbit. Queso's going to Tsunami. That's fine, the Astrabbit has 7 defense anyway. Excuse me. This also tells me Queso doesn't have Arclith in hand. I was fully ready to commit playing into an Arclith here because of our board state. I think we can play very well into an Arclith. Oh no! Oh no! Queso did have the Arclith, but did not consider that when casting the Tsunami. Yeah, we've all been there. That's a bit rough, but again, I mean, I have multiple back rows here. I actually don't know what they are off the top of my head. I think it's been about a week between me doing this commentary and this game being played. So I think one of them might have been a Gorgon's Gaze, or it might have just been the 3rd shield. I think this was the game where I just had 3 shield. So yeah, I'm going to PTA the Galaxy. Of course, remember that makes it a 5-0. It does not make it a 3-2. Because of how Galaxy is ruled. That's kind of what I meant when I say Galaxy is also ruled in a frustrating way. Although that's not just Galaxy, to be fair. That's just how stat swapping in Alestrals works. For those who are unfamiliar, when calculating stats for an Alestral, you always do the math in the order of... First, you factor in effects that change a value. So, like, for example, an effect changes an Alestral's defense to 0. That applies first. Then plus or minus. Then swapping. So the reason Galaxy is a 5-0 is because the math is always... even while Galaxy is still already on the field, if its stats are affected by a plus or minus effect, this is the case. You always do the math of plus or minus, then the swap. So... Galaxy is a 2-5, minus 2 attack makes it an 0-5, the swap makes it a 5-0. Again, that's not very intuitive, especially for Yu-Gi-Oh! Players. It was not intuitive for me, but I was lucky enough to learn very early on about this. So, anyway, what do? We paid out the PTA to out the Galaxy, of course, and then we're going to Ambro here. We did end up losing our Kerbis, though, because of course, the Galaxy's a 5-0, so the Kerbis is still only a 2-9. Did I just put a 3rd Thunder on that Rabbit? I'm pretty sure I did. Or just because, again, it makes a lot more sense than expending to draw. This is why it's also beneficial to play 3 Thunder. I mean, you don't usually put 3 Thunder on one Rabbit, but it can happen. And, of course, there's also the factor of multiple Rabbits. And, Yeah, again, I keep pointing this out, but I think it bears repeating. Mount Olympus is in play, meaning my rabbit is a 5/8 right now. It's a 5/8. That's kind of ridiculous. Getting to swing in for 3, still draw, and also have a ridiculous stat line. While still playing around the Arcolith, too. Quackle coming down here. That comes in as a 3/4 and heals 3. That's fine here. Basically just undoes my attack from last turn. So this particular Quackle doesn't go like super far in terms of healing in that regard. Mostly because of our big swing. But yeah, anyway. Zeusing the rabbit here, and then Quackle is going to battle over it. If I had a PTA, would that have been enough to attack 3/4? It would have been. Yeah, I think I might have had a PTA face down, but I should have thought about that too, because we knew the Zeus was in hand. I probably just forgot because it had been so many turns. Not that that's an excuse. I should not have forgotten that Zeus was in hand. Even so, over the course of a long game, even if we didn't know about the search somehow, should be enough to assume that your opponent probably has Zeus. So if I have a PTA face down, I don't remember if I do, but if I do, I should have played around that and PTA'd the Quackle. But yeah, we're gonna lose our Ass Rabbit there. Gonna cast an Eddy. But I'm not going to swap the Quackle because it is a 3/4. So we're just going to battle over it. Yep. And pass back over to Queso. Yeah, we're still playing around that Arcolith. I mean, we kind of know he has it now, but again, also, we were just playing around it. I mean, not playing around it before, because we did have 2 attackers before he Tsunami'd, but just factoring it into our gameplay, right? I mean, PTA given how many spirits I had, especially at that point in the game, PTA on Arcolith there is not horrible. I mean, you still take a lot of damage, you have to pay a lot, but at least you deal with the Arcolith. Oh, that 5-spirit Arcolith is ridiculous. I've said it a couple of times now, but it's funny how when I first started playing Monarch... Oh, we're casting a Moose Station here, by the way. When I first started playing Monarch, right, I was like, oh, what kind of invokes can I cast off the Arcolith spirit so that way I can get value off of it? Little did I know that simply having a 5-spirit Arcolith is definitely good enough value in and of itself. Gorgon's on the Moose Station here, meaning he is not going to be able to battle over the Quackle, nor can my Eddy, because again, of the Mount Olympus, the Quackle is a 3/4. So, okay, looks like he's ascending the Quackle into the Arcolith, which makes sense. Yeah, he was really... Oh no, is that Toxian? I think that might actually be Toxian here. That is Toxian, because I thought it was going to be Arcolith, but it's Toxian. That's interesting, because the Toxian not only burns, but it's a 6/4 right now, which is a very respectable stat line. And, oh, and then it can still battle over the Moose Station, but it could before anyway, right? Because of the Zeus, if I swapped. I'm trying to think, is there another reason to ascend there instead of casting it alongside Quackle? Maybe to deal damage. Yeah, okay, so we're going to PTA. So I did have a PTA. I did have a PTA set when that Quackle came down. Yeah, that was a misplay on my part then. I 100% should have PTA'd there. Oh, it's because I end up swapping anyway. So you might be wondering why I expended 3 for that PTA there. It's because I'm also swapping stats on my Moose Station. Yeah, we're basically forcing Queso to use the Zeus here if he chooses to battle into Moose Station. Yeah, he's trying to figure out which one he wants to attack right now. It is kind of it's an interesting situation to be in. But yeah, because if we don't... I don't know. I still am trying to figure out if this is 100% right. If we don't expend on the Moose Station, then he can just attack freely over it. But if we do on the cast, then he is forced to use the Zeus effect on it. Because otherwise, because the PTA sets the Toxian at 4 attack right now. Keep in mind, it's got 2 Thunder Spirits and Olympus is up. Okay, so he ultimately decides to battle over the Eddy and force me to pay out. Because, yeah, if he were to Zeus... Oh my god, it's so confusing. No, it's not confusing, because if you were to Zeus, right, after the swap, I'd be at 3 attack. So it was just a matter of which one he wanted to battle over. I see. Okay. I think it kind of equaled the same thing anyway. Except if I hadn't done the swap, he would have gotten a free attack over the Moose Station. It's interesting how complicated the math can get sometimes. But, anyway, I'm going to Ambrosia here. Just figuring out what exactly I want to put back. I'll also note that I expended my Earths earlier. I'm basically giving up on Earthquake at this point. Definitely a very good Spirit Math skill to have. A lot of people think Spirit Math is a skill that only matters in the deck building process, and it does, of course, matter a lot there. But it also matters greatly in the gameplay, knowing what to expend and when to expend it. Knowing when to give up on Earthquake. I've had a lot of games myself where I misplay and I end up having to misenchant stuff with Earth late in the game. Because that's all I have left, because I was like, what if I top deck Earthquake? But yeah, sometimes you just gotta give up on it sooner rather than later. It doesn't even have to necessarily be right away, but you know what I mean. Going to attempt to Dratagua for some healing. I'm at 3 spirits right now, but Queso's gonna Gorgons that. Of course, that Dratagua is coming down defense mode, so we don't get Arcalith here. It's always something you have to constantly keep in mind when playing against Thunder. It's a constant decision point of, can I play around it? Is it worth getting in the extra damage to have to deal with it? So on and so forth. I guess to be fair, Queso only had 1 spirit left anyway. But, I don't know. It might have been a little greedy to put the Dratagua in attack mode anyway. It wouldn't have been able to attack, to be fair, because of the Gorgons, but... Yeah, so with the stadium, the Galaxy is a 3/6, meaning that even if I expend on the Moose Station, I'm actually not able to battle over it. So for that reason, I'm going to cast another Dratagua in defense mode. No reason to put it in attack mode where it could just potentially get battled over. I'm just going to heal. And I like the idea of getting another body on board as opposed to committing. Like more spirits the one in play. I think it's going to give me more options here, potentially. Alright, top decking. I'm trying to figure out what my outs are at this point. Kerbis would certainly be one, being able to ascend into that. Eddie would do it, being able to swap. Oh, and then this would do it. I should have just done this last turn. Yeah, which is to... put a Thunder on the Moose Station. So, don't worry, I did realize it there. But that is going to do it for this game. So, thank you very much for watching. Like I said, I had a blast playing Wexus. It ended up being a lot more better and more fun, both, than I thought it was going to be, which is always nice. But if you want to check out more Lestrals content or Pokemon Pocket, I do both on this channel. I also have my main channel where I do Master Duel with over 18,000 subs, linked in the description below. But that's going to do it for this one. This is Hexlex. I am signing out. Also hoping you have a fantastic day.